If you want to work with high-end clients, you need to be high-end yourself, right? Guess what? Top firms know this. Studio McGee, Corey Damon Jenkins and Associates, and other leading interior designers don't just rely on mood boards and sketches. They use top-tier renderings to bring their visions to life. Because when clients can see the full picture, they say yes faster, with fewer revisions and more confidence. If you're still piecing together inspiration images from samples, hoping clients get it, it's time to level up your presentations. High-quality renderings elevate your brand, streamline your workflow, and help you close better and bigger projects. Want to present like the best in the industry? See why top designers trust Duke Renders. Go to dukerenders.com/Luann to learn more. Welcome to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. My guest today is someone I know very well because we spent quite a bit of time together last year in my Chairman of the Board coaching program. And if you know me, you know that means a lot of Voxer conversations, which happens to be my favorite tools for keeping in touch. Kimberly Horton also attended Luann Live in 2023, a Power Talk Friday in New Jersey in 2024. And if you're not getting the picture yet, Kim is a businesswoman who believes in investing in her growth. She takes her personal and professional development seriously. And because of that, she has consistently leveled up her business acumen, her design talents, and herself as a leader. Before I ever met her, she was already on the path to success, having been named HGTV's Designer of the Year in 2020. And so today, I'm excited to introduce you to Kim Horton. Kimberly has scaled her design firm, House of Savoy, to a multiple six-figure business. Over the course of the year that we worked together, I've watched her hit major milestones and implement big shifts, not by blowing everything up, but by making smart, strategic changes that added up to real results. Now, yes, I can take credit for some of the improvements Kimberly's made, but the strategy that we're talking about today, this one is all Kim. In fact, it's something she taught me, and I loved it so much I wanted to bring it to you. It's something she calls her frustration tracker. After navigating a particularly tough client situation, Kim and I were talking, and she happened to say offhand, "This one is definitely going in my frustration tracker." And I said, "Wait, what? Your what?" Well, today she's walking us through her frustration tracker, exactly how she created this tool, how she uses it, and how it's impacted her client relationships, her systems, and her confidence as a leader. As I mentioned, Kim has always been someone who seeks out growth through coaching, courses, and even therapy. She understands that professional development starts with the person at the helm. You've probably heard me a couple times over the years on the podcast tell you about one of my personal mantras that I adopted from Tony Robbins, and it is, "All I need is within me now." Now, let's be clear. All I need is within me now does not mean all the answers are magically inside of you. It means you are capable of learning what you need. You're capable of finding the tools, absorbing the strategies, and executing them with excellence. It's kind of like we say to our kids nowadays, "We can do hard things," right? And this is one of the things I love most about doing this work. Watching someone like Kim take what she's learning and truly running with it, growing her business, strengthening her leadership, and stepping fully into her role as CEO. It's incredibly rewarding. And as I go into the 6th year of Chairman of the Board coaching, I have to tell you, it doesn't get old. The designers and the window treatment pros I work with are all in, just like Kim. And while I'm there to guide and coach and challenge, I'm always learning too. That's the beauty of this work. We grow together. We celebrate together. We stretch, we stumble, we get back up, and we do it side by side. So if you're listening to today's episode and thinking, I'm ready for that level of clarity and accountability, I invite you to explore the Chairman of the Board program. This isn't a group program with templates. This is one-on-one, you and me, together, getting it done. As of this episode, September 2025, I have 3 seats already filled for 2026. That means I have 2 left for 2026. If this is your go year, the year you take action and create meaningful change, do not wait. Go to luannigara.com/COB to learn more. Now, I am so super excited to introduce you to Kimberly Horton. Hey, Kim, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, Luann. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so this is like old times looking at each other in the Riverside platform. The only difference is it doesn't say coaching studio. It says A Well-Designed Business studio.
Yes, I know. Times have changed.
That's it. Moving on and having so much fun in the process, right?
Yes.
So, Kim, here's the thing. One of the things that I learned of the many amazing things about you during the year that we spent together was your frustration tracker. So I am not detouring. I'm going straight to go. I'm collecting my $200 and I want you to tell me the details of this frustration tracker.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that's really important for me are some of those small, really micro changes that you can implement in your business. It doesn't have to be this grand overhaul, right? It can just be this one small thing that you implement that radically transforms your business. And so for me, this was the frustration tracker. And this came about actually in a therapy session where my therapist said, "Are you documenting the things that are going wrong to look for patterns?" And I was like, "No, but I'm about to."
Don't give that girl a spreadsheet that she has to build because it's built
oh my God.
in a minute.
In 2 seconds, it was built. You already know I have a spreadsheet for everything. So I'm like, great, this sounds perfect for Google Sheets. So rapidly, right, I put this together. And so basically, my spreadsheet is a detailed way for me to take a look at the little micro things that happen in a working relationship. So it could be me with my contractor, could be me with a client, could be the client's complaint of the contractor. It's just anything. Sometimes it could be my own frustration with myself of I really didn't like this part of the process, or I really could have done better here. And so the frustration tracker is basically broken into a couple of different columns. So first, I'm tracking which client is having this issue. Very important because some clients are more difficult than others. So I also need to be able to assess, was this a me problem or was it not? The issue that I faced during that time. And then I ask myself 2 really important questions and document both of them. So the first one is, what does this say about my business? And the second one is, what does this say about me? And that has been so illuminating for me to be able to highlight how are parts of the way that I behave showing up, or do I have some limiting belief that's coming through that is being sort of validated by this moment where I'm sitting there going, hey, this is a me thing. This is the problem that I'm having. And then I move on from there to the next question, which is this in my control? And that is a simple yes, no question. And then there's 2 parts after this. What are the possible solutions? So I got to be honest with you. I don't do this one in the moment because sometimes I'm like, oh God, I'm so mad at this person. I just need to write it.
Okay.
So I come back to this monthly and I write down what are the solutions. When I'm able to be objective, when I'm able to see outside of the problem itself, I write down a list. most of my frustration points have multiple solutions. So I write
Mm.
down multiple solutions. And then the very last part of my frustration tracker is how important is this that I implement? And so it's basically ranked from this is immediate, high, normal, or low priority so that I know which ones I need to tend to immediately.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's the consensus of the frustration tracker.
Okay, so I'm not at all surprised at how logical and detailed it is.
Yep.
Okay. I'll tell you the other part that I think if I didn't know you, if this was the first time and you just pitched to be on the show, I
Hmm.
think the part that would have pleasantly surprised me was the step that I wait till I have objectivity
Hmm.
before I really try and work on this
Yeah.
solution here. But knowing you now, that doesn't surprise me, but I
Hmm.
do want to call it out because um, that is key critical, right?
Hmm.
Like when I literally just yesterday had to send an email to someone that I was, let's just call a spade, pissed at. I
Hmm.
was pissed.
Yeah.
And normally I have a very strict rule. I do not respond to you by Voxer, by email, by telephone, by smoke signal until I have processed my emotions out of it.
Yeah.
And I am now looking at it like a movie.
Yeah.
This is two people over there having this conversation. I have reviewed my part in it. I have reviewed possible solutions, and I'm able to come to it with neutrality.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that in that conversation, the person doesn't piss me off all over again and the whole thing cycles again. Let's not, I
Yep.
am a human being. Okay. But that's my rule of thumb. And just yesterday, I was like, because of the sensitivity of what the situation was, I knew it was my move, my turn. If I were going to be on the right road here, I needed to respond. And I waited to the third day. I still wasn't out of anger, but I was like, pushing it any further is now creating a snowball of other problems.
Yeah.
And so I literally was just like, I literally said to ChatGPT, this is all the details. I can't answer this nice yet. I'm not ready to be nice, but I need a nice version.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was able to then with clarity rewrite it, even though the chat GBT is like literally talks in my voice now, but rewrite it, refine it. And so I do think that it's awesome that you give yourself, because there's no deadline on this frustration tracker. You're going to learn the lesson, whether it's today, next week, or next month. And
Right.
you do have that ability to pull all the way back from it. So
Hmm.
of all the steps and all the questions, that one just strikes me as the most, probably one that will get you the highest ROI. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I think it's so necessary, right? Because I am also a human. So just because I'm a business owner doesn't mean I'm going to operate at 100% every single day, right? I Somebody's going to say something and it's going to upset me. I'm going to be like, my contractor said this 3 times in a row. I'm starting to lose my patience with him. I'm ready to just like walk up off the site. There are things that happen. And so what is important is that in the moment of my frustration, I write it down. Maybe it's
mm,
not on the Google sheet, maybe I text it to myself, maybe I put it on a note on my phone, but I try to in the moment capture that frustration, because hindsight is 2020, right? But
right.
you look back and you miss the nuances of things,
Yeah.
and those nuances are really important. And then yeah, coming back to it objectively, I am somebody who, I mean, you know me, Lou, right? So I'm somebody who I process out loud, but I process very well and very quickly out loud,
Mm-hmm.
right? All I need is free space. And so this frustration tracker is part that, right? It's allowing me the ability to vent and to process what is happening on my end, but then it allows me the space to come back objectively and say, okay, looking outside of this situation, what could I have done differently?
Right.
What needs to change in my process? What do I need to address with the client so that they can do something differently? Because sometimes it's not about me or changing my process. Sometimes it's, hey, I just need to have a conversation with my client and set a boundary here,
Mm-hmm.
or the
Mm-hmm.
contractor.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's funny because I feel like throughout the year, this conversation constantly resonated with me. Up, I'm going to put that on my frustration tracker. You know what I mean? You might have said it 3 times in a year. It wasn't like every damn day of the week. You were like, oh my God, something went wrong, but it was the major things. And it aligns so much with my belief of wind it back to where you could have done something different,
Yeah.
right? And that's what I really had noticed, that it gives you, we all learn the hard lessons. We do. We go through it, we get our stomach punched, we get our knees kicked out, we get on the floor, we stand up again. But deeper learning, more meaningful learning happens when we really actually, in my words, wind it back to how we could have changed the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know, I'm like, you know, I just have this very firm belief, and it's been proven in my lifetime over and over again, that the universe will continue to put a problem in your lap until you learn it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It shows up in a relationship with a girlfriend. It shows up in a relationship with a partner. It shows up in a relationship with a contractor. It shows up a relationship in a consumer. Like, if you've got an ongoing inherent belief system that is not serving you, the universe wants you to be your best. The universe wants you to perform, and it'll keep saying, okay, Lou, here, over here, here it is again. Okay, Kim, here it is again. But because it comes in different forms and different shapes and different sizes, and it comes sometimes with business and sometimes it comes with personal, if we don't do that deep reflection, we
Yeah.
can just walk away and think, either I think I learned the lesson, or worse, it's not my lesson to learn, it was their fault. Because there
Mm-hmm.
is something we can do. I know a lot of times in our conversations regarding your clients throughout the year, it would be that we were faced with something from a client that was not appropriate, right? There was multiple times that you had some clients throughout the year that we were just like, well, that's completely out of line,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
But we need to do, I know, for me, I feel like our process was twofold. How do we handle the pickle right now?
Mm-hmm.
But when you said, and this is going on my frustration tracker, then we would pick apart you internally, then running it by me or whatever it was. Like, how do I not get to a situation again where a client can say this thing to me again? And
Yep.
if they do say it to me again, I'm able to, with clarity, just say, that's not how we discussed it. Not like, oh, I forgot to tell you that part. That's not how it works.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is where like the limiting beliefs really comes in with that question about like, what does this say about me?
Mm,
I've had this frustration tracker since 2023.
wow.
And I keep up with it. So some years this thing is a long sheet. But one thing I've realized are there always patterns that you can see.
That part's the interesting part.
Always patterns. For me, sometimes it's I'm not communicating effectively. I'm communicating, but it may not be received effectively. Sometimes it's my process needs refinement. Like the client is wanting something that comes later in the process, but they're asking for it earlier. If I'm able to pick up on those nuances, right, it allows me to change my process so that I'm meeting their needs before it becomes a need for the next client,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm always once a month, I'm in here and I'm assessing this. What are my limiting beliefs? How am I showing up in this? The important thing for me is I feel like I'm a very self-reflective person. I've done a lot of work on myself. It's something that's like very important core value of mine is self-development, right? But I have to, my hardest time is actually stepping back from what could I have done differently into looking at what if this does not actually belong to me? Because
Mm.
sometimes that's what it is. For example, I can give you a great scenario. I have a contractor. You heard about this contractor last year. Guess what? He's still a problem this year. Okay. I'm not going to lie. It's like path of least resistance, right? But there's a lot of like overstepping that happens in the design process. There's times where he's just communicating something about the design to the client directly, and I'm finding out 3 or 4 meetings later going, wait a minute, that's not what we talked about. Like this is not what I had on paper. This is not what the client signed
And
off
he,
for.
just for clarity, he's got the paper. He's got
He's
the
got the
spec book from
paper.
you. It's not like it's in your brain and you're like, hey, why didn't you read my mind? I just want to clarify for
Yeah.
our colleagues
No,
listening.
no,
Yeah.
it's like
He's ignoring it.
I
He's
went over it with
answering a
him
question
yesterday.
without going to document and going to the document to get the answer. He's just showing
Absolutely.
up and saying, hey, we should just do it this way, right?
Absolutely. He's that guy. He's the guy who will text you because he doesn't want to pick up the piece of paper to look. He just
Yes.
wants a quick and fast answer. And so there's a lot of things that I see. Here's the thing, I wouldn't have associated these problems with him, but I had a client who was like spending more and more and more, and she was getting frustrated with me, and it actually was presented as the furniture was too much, the timeline was too much, there were these other things, right? But as I sat back and reflected, and as I worked through this frustration tracker, what I realized at the core of it, underneath all of that, was this contractor intentionally underbid this project. And
Mm.
so here he comes hitting her with change order and change order, and her cost
The
is going
worst.
up. And so now the furniture is coming down, right? And so, but like you can see how many layers are in this onion, right? And
Yes.
I'm peeling it back going, well, is it the furnishings? No. Is it the timeline? No, because I've communicated that to her 3 or 4 times. Now what I'm understanding is it's a pricing concern, and it's because the contractor's process didn't allow room for the project to remain intact as we originally had expected. And so, sure enough, frustration tracker, I'm pulling it out going, okay, contractor, this is my problem. This is my solution. My solution is ultimately find a new contractor, but here we are anyway. So there's one pattern, for example.
Right.
But it really does help you kind of see like things at that objective level, right? Because I've been sitting here going, oh, it's the furniture, it's the timeline, because this is what she's saying. And I'm taking her at face value. But no, it is an onion, and it is always an onion, and there's always
Yes.
something underneath it, and you just have to be able to look for that. And you can't look for that when you're pissed off at the contractor
Right.
or upset with the client. Like that is like, I need like 3 to 5 business days to sit on this one.
It's true. I mean, because we know that in our personal life, right? We have been on the receiving end and the giving end of, something. When we're on the giving end, something's got me upset. I'm in a spin. I'm in a tizzy. It's pissing me off. And somebody basically is like, you want a cup of tea? And you're like, I don't want tea. I'm not hungry. I'm not thirsty. And they're just looking at you like roadkill. Like,
Yep.
I'm sorry. I was just asking if you wanted tea, and you're freaking out. And like,
Yep.
it's funny because for me, I have to say, I think Yvonne Chen's is probably the safest person, is the biggest brunt of it. Let's be serious, right?
Yep.
But even then, after 40 years together, I feel like we both are, I would say 70 to 85% proficient at, if I'm pissed at something and it's not you, we separate and process. And, I can literally just look at him and go, I hear you, but I don't have said space for that right now. I'm really upset about something else that has literally nothing to do with you. But even talking about this other thing that seems like something that's not important. And of course, I love my husband because he'll be like, well, just give me the answer so I can move on. I'm like, yeah. Like, I'm just asking for space, dude, right? But the thing is that when you are guilty of that, and we all are guilty of it, that's the version of what you just said there. It's like the client keeps saying furniture's expensive, timeline's wrong. And if we're just in that moment, we're not taking the time. And I love that exploration that you're just like, wait a second, this isn't the first time that's happened when this contractor is involved in a project. And that is the actual true benefit. You know what? Every one of us is a true benefit. That is one of the highest benefits of your frustration tracker, because if you weren't recording it, you think you remember that it happens with this, because I know you have multiple contractors you work with. You might not really have the clarity that this same version of this problem rears up when I'm in contract with this contractor. And then here comes we'll wind it back. What's happening? Oh, this guy consistently bids low, and his business model is change orders, right? That's his business model. Like, I'm just going to get the job and I'm going to feed you change orders for the next 7 months, and you're going to have to approve them, client and designer, because what are you going to do? Stop the middle of the house from being built? And so that's a handcuffing moment for you as the leader of the project. But with this clarity, now, I mean, I know what I would say if we were still working together. He needs to sit down. He needs to sit down, or he needs to go, period. Like, it's like what I always said to you 1,000 times. It's clients, it's employees, it's relationships. Can we rehab this, or are we walking it through the front door and out of our lives? And so we can, if it's a valuable contractor, we can take the stab at rehabbing it. And that starts with a reframe, a reset, right?
hmm Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is like these patterns are not necessarily just for this one project, right? I'm looking at each client and I'm seeing who's the contractor here. Where does this issue actually stem from? Is this a me thing? Is this not a me thing? Maybe it's a client thing, like they're not all they're cracked up to be sometimes
Of
too.
course.
So, I'm like, but you do have to look at things all the way around, because fundamentally, he is an integral part of my business. And
Sure.
if every project he's on has something, now it may not be the same pattern, but there may always be a pattern with him. So that's a
Yeah.
pattern in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
That's something to pay attention to. And so in this particular case, that's very true. Every single project, there's something. I just went
There's,
to a site visit this morning, and the client said, well, nothing's really been happening on the job site for like a week. And this is the second or third time they've said that to me. And I keep asking him, where's the schedule? Where's the schedule? Where are we at? And so, see, that's not the same pattern as underbidding,
no.
right? But it is a pattern that
Where
has
he's like passive aggressive.
it has one common denominator,
And it's him.
where we're just not operating at maximum efficiency. Now, this guy is so pleasant. You want to get a beer with him at the end of the day. He's great. Everybody loves him on site. But when I sit down and look at it, I go, wow, actually, a lot of my frustrations are around this one thing. But actually, a lot of my clients' frustrations are around this too. The things they're bringing to the table for me to address are not actually about me and my process. They're about
Mm.
somebody else and about their process. And so, of course, as I'm doing this evaluation, I ask myself, well, how much say so do I have in this? Right?
Yes.
Like, as I'm reviewing the bids, do I have the flexibility to say to him, this is not right? Yes, I absolutely do. I absolutely do. But at the end of the day, his business is not my business. And so it's
Yes. You
not,
can't
there's a
dictate.
line, right, where it's not my responsibility to say, hey, you're overcharging. His price is his price. If somebody doesn't want to pay it, that's okay. But there are reasonable limitations and space for me to be able to say, I don't think this looks right. I think that you need to reevaluate this. And so, yeah, sometimes ultimately, I feel like this just works its way into boundaries, right? Ultimately, it's a boundary within myself, a boundary within the client, a boundary within the contractor.
Mhm.
Sometimes that does just mean walking away.
Yeah.
And I'm okay to do that, because the thing is, I've been tracking my frustrations. And so now I have the data, because I'm very data driven, as the spreadsheet would indicate, right? I'm very data driven to be able to say, okay, we've had this issue, and now here's another issue, and then this one popped up, and okay, time to make a decision. And I think the thing is, like, sometimes when we're not documenting things, everything's just like loosey goosey in your brain,
Yes.
right? You're like not
And you
paying
make up
attention.
stories. You make up
Yeah.
stories for what the reasons things happen, because you're in the emotion of it. And that's that key part where you break it down post emotion.
Yeah. And normally you're wrong. That's the thing,
That's
right?
the other thing, right?
Normally you're
Because in the
wrong.
moment we're self-preserving. We're like
Yeah.
defending our subconsciously. We're making our case,
hmm
right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's just human nature. Survival is first. It's our first instinct, whether it's survival in a debate or survival in life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I mean, the frustrations I track, so like the contractor is obviously a much larger example of, whoa, this is a really big problem that has now deeply affected my ability financially in this project, right? So that's like a very grandiose example. But there's some small, like, as you say, Luann, some
Yep.
like little nudgy moments, right? Where I'm documenting those too. So, for example, I had a client and I presented her concept design to her, and she took the floor plan that I presented and she started to write her own, like, oh, we'll put the furniture here, or let's move this here, let's move that there. And so she basically restructured the floor plan, and she couldn't read the floor plan. Okay. So this was comical to me, because I'm like, it's already in there. You're just like not knowing how to read a floor plan, right?
Oh my gosh.
And so that's really small. But actually, what that says, like, again, an onion, when you're unlayering that, she is micromanaging, and there's a lack of respect for what my role is to provide the furniture layout myself. And so for me, that was clear. We need to have a boundary conversation. Hey, I'm going to present the floor plans to you. they are meant to stay as they are, right? Like, this is not a working document. This is
It's
like,
not a collaboration.
this
You're not
only
my lead
fits.
designer where we're going to decide what's best.
Right. Right. And she had a small space, and I'm like, this only fits one way. Like, let's be real. If I wanted it the other way, I would have presented it to you the other way. And so that's just like some small moments that I had in
But
there.
the
And I'm
thing
like,
is, I think there's a bigger problem in there, or an
yeah.
additional problem in there. It's the type of personality that acts before clarifying
Yep.
from an expert. You
Yep.
know, I just came out of an hour-long meeting with Nicole Heimer, and if we go back to the AI, there's at least 4 times in 50 minutes where I said, "Okay, just for clarity, what you're saying to me is this, and what my next
Mm-hmm.
step, my task for me to do to keep your timeline."
Yeah.
Because she's my expert. She's like, here's the timeline, girl. You want this thing done by, the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of October. Don't miss a deadline, right? So she's
Yeah.
leading the project.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of me just saying, oh, I don't need that. I don't need that wireframe. I don't need that list. I don't need
Mm-hmm.
that FAQ. I would say, okay, clarity. This is my next. I always want to know what's the next thing I have to do, not the third
Mm-hmm.
thing from now. Get me
Yep.
my next thing. I got to
Yep.
keep it rolling, right? But
Yeah.
I think that's the thing with her. It's like imagining someone willing to strike up your floor plan
Yeah.
with not even and the absurdity of writing in a floor plan, a sofa that already exists because you don't have the expertise to read a floor plan. Like
Yeah.
that says a whole lot to me.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. And so this is the thing, right? On the surface level, I could make an argument that she was just like mocking up where she would want things to go, or hey, what if we move this over here, which sounds so innocent, right? But
Right.
again, onion, as you peel it back, you're like, this is sort of a red flag here. Do I need to question this thing? And you write her name down and you track the frustration. If at some point you find there's a lot of these types of behaviors happening, well, now you get to evaluate the person as a whole. Is
Right.
this a relationship we want to continue working in? Maybe she has a different way she wants to work that just doesn't align with how I want to work. But the thing is, it allows me to pivot and to pivot quickly because I'm documenting it. So I'm not letting things sit here for 6 months and then going, oh, okay, now I need to go change my process, but now we're dismantling half of the process. I'm catching things in the moment that they're happening. Oh, okay, a week later, let's go fix this, let's go fix that. And so
Right.
it really is allowing me that opportunity to troubleshoot before that next thing happens again.
Yes. And the thing is that I think for clarity, we're talking about a particular problem that happened with you, the exact. We're not like, in theory, maybe this could happen to you. This
Yeah,
happened
no.
to you, right?
Yeah.
And so, also, what I want to clarify though is someone listening might be like, hey, I don't mind that. I would have just said,
Yeah.
hey, there's the sofa. Like, oh, can I take 1 second and show you what the symbols are on a floor plan
Yep.
so that you don't have to start marking up things that are there. And they might feel very like this is a great thing to do with somebody.
Mhm.
So it doesn't mean that the behavior is wrong.
Right.
I mean, Sharon Sherman was on the episode. We'll put the link in the show notes where she identified the 4 major behavior types of personalities
Mhm.
and also help you figure out what your kind of overarching personality type is. And then if you can start to spot, first of all, if you can recognize in yourself, we had Anna Nelson on the show who also talked about your own like Clifton Strengths Finder, your Strength Finder thing, right? But
Yep.
the idea is the more you get to know yourself with
Mhm.
clarity, this is how I like to operate. This is what I like to do. This kind of way,
Yeah.
the rapport I like to have. This is the way
Yeah.
I like the project to go. And then the more you spend really trying to figure out and how to identify the person that best resonates with you.
Mhm.
So, and it can be at the root of a frustration tracker like this, because
Yeah.
if you were to look at your frustration tracker over a year and 6 different problems with clients, you then pick it apart with objectivity and hindsight. And you're like, well, none of these problems were contractor related or this related. This is all dynamics between me and that person.
Right.
And it's like, oh, and all of these people had a version of the same thing that I didn't like.
Mhm.
Oh, they're
Mhm.
all a version of this personality type. Great. go live your life, but let me refer you to my friend Sally because you and I don't work together well. Or
Yeah.
I don't like this process with you. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? It's like me with yeah, but people.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to agree with me, but don't start with yeah, but because
Yeah.
it's just going to internally, I go, oh, okay, awesome.
Hmm.
You paid your good money for this advice, but yeah, but it. Okay.
Yeah.
How about yes, and or not sure or
Hmm.
explain it more? But yeah, but
Hmm.
in any version of yeah, but there's 1,000 ways to say yeah, but when I hear it, my brain goes, okay, thanks
Yeah.
so much for being the expert. Why don't I pay you the next time?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? That's such important context to this last problem, right? Is that I've been in this industry for nearly 10 years now, right? I have a very clear understanding of how I operate. I am a systems and process girl. I love my spreadsheets. I do not deviate off my process. Absolutely not. There's no like exceptions to the policy or anything. And I'm very firm on that. There's different ways in which I give to clients, but my process remains the same. And so when I'm documenting the things on my frustration tracker, it's through what works for me, right?
Yes.
So somebody else can read my frustration tracker and be like, well, that wouldn't bother me, or, oh, I'd be okay with this. That's fine. Their boundaries are completely different than mine, but it doesn't do me any good to track frustrations that are not mine in the first place.
Right, right,
Like
right.
this is for me for the way that I want to work. And so in this example, right, if I see that there are common themes between different clients but similar problems, I say, okay, this is an ideal client issue. I'm talking to the wrong people. Now that might mean it's a copy issue on my website. It might mean it's an inquiry call process that needs to be adjusted, or I need to ask different questions, or ask the same question in a different way, but it gives me valuable insight into, again, what is mine and what is not mine.
Exactly. I love all of that. Um, How about times, Kim, where, through a particular item on your frustration tracker, where you did really come to, oh, this is a me thing. This is leftover from programming that I've got that has nothing to do with my design education and my business, but I'm carrying my baggage into this spot. And across 4 different personality types of consumers, I'm finding this happening. And you ended up determining this is a me problem. How about is
Mm-hmm.
there? I don't even know if you have a
Yeah.
specific hot aha around that you can relate to.
I do. I
Oh,
do.
good.
And ironically, it just occurred.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, so I'm in a season of life right now where I am more deeply invested into me than the business. Sometimes I oscillate, but it's really easy to change things in the business, not so easy to change things in yourself. And so I'm currently at this place where I'm processing, how am I showing up in work? And I got to tell you, that was not easy work. And it has led to a lot of realizations about my own decision making abilities, my trust in myself, and my confidence within myself. And so I'm noticing that those are areas of improvement for me where I know I'm really good at design, but there's other things where I'm just like, I don't know that I feel confident having this conversation. Or, sometimes hard conversations are just hard for me. It takes me energy to work into. Great. How do I set a boundary? It's difficult. And I'm a recovering people pleaser, I like to say.
Yeah.
But what I noticed is that is showing up in my business. So, for example, I just got an inquiry call from a client. It was a word of mouth referral. So great. She wasn't interviewing anybody else. I knew the job was mine. We talked about timeline, and I gave her clear instructions for where the timeline would land based on my process and her scope of work. And I said to her, we either have a scope of work change or we have a timeline change. Something has to occur. What I noticed happening was we were having this tug of war, right? Where she changed neither, of course, right? She's like, no, I want the scope of work and I want the timeline. And I'm like, you didn't listen. I said one of them has to go. But, anyways, my issue was my people pleasing kicked in and I kept this conversation going. So rather than coming back to her the second time and saying, hey, that's not a scope of work or a timeline change, like I won't be able to meet these timeline requirements because it's unrealistic. I then carried on with her and we ended up having 4 or 5 exchanges. This is before she signed any documents working with me, by the way. And at the end of it, I realized I was like, I'm sitting here bending over backwards to try to book this client to help her, because this was my mindset. I'm like, she has a problem. I can make this work.
She's a
Yeah, no, I
referral.
can't.
Yeah.
I can't though, because her timeline was unrealistic. And then my boundary kicked in late, but it kicked in and I said, this is actually a no. Sometimes when somebody doesn't give you any answer, it is also a no. And I was like, that's the thing I wasn't paying attention to. So here I am carrying on and I'm like, okay, people pleasing definitely kicked in. And it's a trait, it's something that I'm working on, but it does occur. Like I want my
Yes.
clients to all be happy. Sometimes I don't talk to the contractor in the moment of which he's being an idiot, because I'm like, I just need to calm my clients down. I just need to get through this. And then I don't end up having the conversation
with the
right? Because
contractor, right?
a hard conversation. And I said, that's what I'm working on.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't have it. And then I get to the point of, hey, we're at last project. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so the one thing that I've learned personally has been like, people pleasing is an unkind behavior, because you don't allow somebody the opportunity to adjust their behavior too, right? By me not communicating with the contractor, I'm not giving him space to adjust or to adapt because he values our working relationship. I'm just kind of letting things slide. And so the second lesson in that was my silence is my acceptance. By not addressing it with him, I'm quietly saying, this is completely acceptable behavior. This is okay.
Yeah.
Right. And it was the same thing with the client as I'm appeasing the conversation of timeline and scope of work. And I'm not being clear and direct of, listen, lady, I said it's scope of work or timeline. Right. I'm appeasing the conversation. I'm quietly saying, yeah, I think we can accommodate, or, yeah, maybe we can reduce the scope or we can phase it. But the truth was, she kept saying, I don't want to phase the work. My scope of work is my scope of work. Yeah. And so this is where like that frustration tracker coming in and me identifying, oh, this is mine. And actually this stems from people pleasing tendencies.
Yes. I love this. I mean, and if I hadn't spent the year with you, I don't think I would have the depth of insight to this, because when I think back over the year, a good amount of the interactions that you and I worked through together that were specifically related to clients and or the contractor, mostly clients in that year, was me just going, okay, can you do it or not? Can you do it or not? And you're like, well, no. I'm like, okay, no is a complete answer. Yeah. I remember I said that one time at a panel discussion, and Michael Bauer from Fazy just like fell to the floor. And now every time I see him, he's like, no is a complete sentence. And I'm like, that's right. It can have a period after it. You know what I mean? But I remember that because, to your point, it's something you bring to the equation, that deep-rooted feeling of being a people pleaser. And you know what? There's 1,000 places that's such a great quality. I have a current chairman of the board now that, as we're talking, like 2 weeks ago, I probably did 2 15-minute Voxers on, hey, people pleasing, not bad. This is not bad. That's just right. Channel it for good. Figure out how it serves you and your client. Because at one Voxer, she left. She was like, I know this is just my people pleasing again, and I'm working on getting it out of me. I'm like, no, ma'am. This is part of the love and the joy of who you are. And it's the same with you, Kim. It's that same, it's what makes you go the extra mile. Yeah. Right? It's what makes you make sure the contractor knows something. It's what makes you, put the flowers at the finishing touch when you do the reveal. The rest of us are just like, there's your great home. Bye. Write the check. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so so I don't ever want anything that's a core part of us to wipe out. But just to find to flip the switch on, how do we make this trait work for us? And how do we not let it slide? Like, to me, the analogy is like, I love Twix candy bars. I love cookies. These are my two, kryptonites. Okay. So I can love cookies, but I can't love them 40 a day, 7 days
Yeah.
a week for a
Yeah.
month straight
Yeah.
because
Boundaries, Lou.
yeah, like it's just like, so it's the same with people pleasing. We don't want to get rid of it. We still
Yeah.
want to have cookies once or twice a week and have the smile on our face and the joy. We don't want you to not be a people pleaser.
Yeah.
We just want it to be in service of both you and your client, not
Yeah.
just the client at the expense of you.
Yeah.
And there's a way to really, to your point, reflect objectively on what are the areas where people pleasing can
Mhm.
serve me and my client, but not to mistake. And that's the hard part. And that's where that outside look, either if
Mhm.
with a consultant coach on your shoulder or your own reflection that you do, where you parse through, okay, 10 cookies for 10 days in a row. Probably not good. Do I need somebody to tell me that's not good? I'm not
Yeah.
sure that I need it,
Yeah.
but maybe I do. In that first month that I'm trying to get rid of eating 10 cookies a day, 10 days
Mhm.
every day of the week,
Yeah.
right? Maybe I need somebody on my shoulder going, sweetie, two cookies,
Yeah.
two cookies. We're not getting rid of them, right?
Yeah.
And I hope that makes sense, that analogy, right? We
Yeah.
don't want to erase it. We
Right.
just want to manage it
Right.
in service of you first,
Yeah.
your business,
Absolutely.
your lifestyle, your
Mhm.
people that it protects and supports and uplifts.
Yeah.
And then when you figure out how that people pleasing quality or whatever quality we're talking about supports you and your best version of yourself, now we figure out how to layer it in, and where we have to draw a pen around it for somebody, like a box around it, to say, nope, that's it. I
Yeah.
people pleased enough here. And to your point, that was a good example. It's like you could tell somebody 15 ways from Sunday
Yeah.
that you're not getting this project done with this level of scope in this
Yeah.
timeline. And if
Yeah.
they don't hear it, that's ultimately on you, because to your point, you realize after 4 or 5 conversations, you were not being clear.
Yeah.
Your higher priority was being liked.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
higher
Exactly.
priority was no conflict. Your higher priority was
Yep.
avoid the conversation.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I feel like I could say with confidence, there were many times in our year together that I feel like I pushed you
Mhm.
to draw a line that you were not comfortable with, you were
Yeah.
not sure, like your intellectual brain agreed with it, but the Kim showing up to the conversation was like, holy crap, she better be right, because I'm just trusting her on this. Because I knew that you were a great example of, I'm going to trust the expert,
Yeah.
and I'm at least going to try it. And if it blows up in my face, I can bitch her out. I can bitch myself out. We can go to step 2. But mostly you did okay, I'm going to go from 10 cookies a day to 7 because you say it's better. And mostly I
Mhm.
was like, let's go from 10 to 2. Like, I'm not like, we're not doing phases here, Kim. This
Yeah.
is a live working project. We need to wrestle it now.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I don't know that there was a single time, and I feel like there were a good amount of hard conversations that we
Mhm.
walked through together. I don't think there was a single time it backfired on you.
Yeah. No, see, the one thing that I learned is I'm a therapy baby. I've been in therapy for a long time. I just have actually 17 years, and I'm only
Wow.
35. So it's been a very long time. A very long time. The one thing I've always been okay with is criticism from somebody else, constructive criticism. I like to be told how people perceive me. I like to hear the areas of improvement. I like to hear where I could do better, because I believe that in order to be the best businesswoman and the best person, it requires people who can be radically honest with you.
Mm,
And it
yeah.
also requires you to be radically honest with yourself. And so I have learned very early on to get comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. That does not mean the conversation is pleasant. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean I want to hear it. But I believe that the people that I talk to have my best interests
Yeah.
at heart. And so naturally, this therapy baby mentality kicked in with work. And I'm like, I don't need to know everything. I just need to hire people who know one other thing than me, right?
Yes.
They have like some other specialty. And so this is what I do. I take the frustration tracker. And at the end of the year, come November, December, I'm like, holy crap, got to deplete money real fast, right?
Yeah,
Before
yeah,
the
yeah,
year, before
yeah.
the year comes.
Let's do something that our money works for us as opposed to just writing checks, right?
That's right. That's right. So I look at the frustration tracker and I'm like, okay, what are the core things that I want to work on the following year? And then I find the people to meet that criteria. And so
Love that.
like when I was coming to you, it was okay, I have a huge financial, like a lot of questions and conversations. How can I better manage my finances? How do I know when I can hire? Right. In our first 6 months, we're like largely focused on that.
Right.
And then if you notice, there was like a
Yeah.
clear line,
Yes.
like 6 months hit. And I was like, okay, we're off that subject now. Guess what? Now we need to talk about people and boundaries and communications and all of the like interpersonal skills that kind of
Yes.
happen, right? Because I'm open to an outside perspective,
Yeah.
because I want to hear from somebody who's been doing it longer than me to be able to put themselves as my client, right? I'm not going to sit there and ask my client, hey, how is this coming off to you? I'm not going to
Exactly.
do that. I'm not
Exactly.
going to do that. I'm okay asking them certain questions, but when somebody else can get in your business at a level with you toe to toe and say, hey, this is how you're showing up, or hey, we really got to have this hard conversation, Kim, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
Now it might take me a day to actually execute because I might be sitting over there going, I really don't want to do this. I'm not sure about this, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is all nuances, right? Like I'm
Mm.
not going to go from 0 to 100 real fast. That's not my personality type, right? And when we're
Right.
talking about people pleasing in particular, you can't fix that overnight,
No.
right?
And
This is a
again, we're
learned
not fixing
pattern.
it. We're finding the
Yeah,
way through it. We're
right.
finding to keep it intact and preserve you and serve them.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's nuances in understanding where that shows up. For me,
Yes.
I do go the extra mile for my clients. When I love you, I absolutely love you. And I'm here for you and I will do everything I can for you. But when I'm not having honest conversations with myself, i.e., about the timeline, right? I'm doing myself a disservice. And that's where that's kicking in.
Yeah.
And so sometimes those hard conversations aren't like, okay, Luann, we're done talking about this. Let me go call them. Sometimes it's like, I might not be ready to take that step, but what are the other steps that I could take that get me there,
Oh, and
right?
we did that a lot of times. You're
A
like,
lot.
yeah, I remember it was a lot of times it was like, okay, this is a bigger conversation that I've got to psych myself up for.
Yeah.
I've got to practice, you would
Yeah.
say to me. And I would like, right. But just like that email I talked about this morning, there's a timeline where
Yep.
you cannot respond, where now we've created a different problem.
Right.
So we would talk through what's the email that just puts them on their back foot, lets
Yep.
them know you're working. There's
Mhm.
not a final thing happening here. You're not dictating anything,
Mhm.
but you're also not rolling over on the last nonsense thing that was in their email
Mhm.
either.
Yeah.
This is like,
Yeah.
this is a pause. I'm collecting my thoughts, right?
Right.
So,
And
yeah.
that's exactly for me. It's because I am working on those people pleasing tendencies that negatively affect me, that I don't want to get stuck in the middle of a conversation and realize I'm overextending myself.
Yes.
So, my practice is an opportunity for me to say what I need to say and then be boundaried in the response so that I'm not allowing that issue to continue to fester. And so, you well know our last 6 months was very heavily, hey, I've got this situation. How do I address this? How do I have this hard conversation? And it's a lot of learning what works for you
Mm.
based on the things that you bring to the table, right?
Yes. Yes, exactly. And the thing is I know for me, when I worked with you and the others, when there is a client problem, I think you'll vouch for this. I'm literally like, I'm Switzerland. You
Mhm.
think they're the ones out of line? I'm not sure of it yet. Let me,
Yeah.
I ask you 15 questions. Did you, who said
Mhm.
that? But I asked to see the email that the client has sent that is like, your
Yeah.
brain is like, this is completely out of line. And I'm just like, well, is it though? And then I will be very objective with you and the others that I've worked with in pulling out, look, as a consumer, I can see that this is a valid request. Now, I've also understand your back end, and I also understand what you've
Mhm.
told me about the way you've set it up, and I understand why you want to and you can and you should say no. But
Yep.
let's not lose the fact that them asking is not this egregious event,
Right.
right? And so and it's funny because I find that most of the miscommunication that happens with a client, base level, like the dozens of little things, not the big problems that can happen with a client.
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't want to pay their bill, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's like a whole nother story, right? But the muck and the mire in the weeds is mostly the consumer not grasping the entire thing with clarity. And that is always,
Yeah.
my friend, rooted in the designer. It's like, if you don't
Yeah.
show
And
up
I
with
was just going to
clarity around
say,
your
yeah.
services, how are they supposed to understand? They push the scope, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and that's a silent, like it's the designer on the other end having a silent expectation that somebody
Yes.
is just going to get it. And the
Yes.
truth is, people don't,
Right.
right? And so when you come even into a working relationship, everybody's bringing their crap to the table, right? You're
That's
bringing
right.
your people pleasing tendencies, you're bringing your indecisiveness, even as a designer, to the table. If you have a hard time being committed, you're bringing that to the table too, and they're also bringing their stuff,
That's right.
right? And so it is very much like a dating relationship
Yeah.
where now you have to figure out, do the parts of you and the parts of them make sense?
Right.
Sometimes that is just a no, and
Right.
it has to be that way. But having like your objective opinion in this allowed me to step back and even further evaluate,
Yeah.
is this
Yeah.
me, is this not me, right?
Yeah.
Because Switzerland is great, you need Switzerland, right? Which is why, like, for me it's so valuable to have a therapist and a business coach and to really invest your stuff. Like, I don't actually invest my money into programs, really, I
Right.
don't. And not even really like general educational avenues. I invest myself in people that I know can solve particular problems based on my own levels of frustration
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's
Well,
the way
and
that you
let's
have
just
to do
add,
it.
because I know this about you. You've done a lot of the base work in the programs, right? So
Yeah.
if you're brand new, it's like you've taken practically every course at Lou University, right? But
Well, I
that's
took
like
them all.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I was thinking it was almost every one, right? But
It is.
but that's the foundational work, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the
And
foundational work. And now at this point in your journey, it's
yeah.
now target specific situational, right?
Yeah, I mean, 10 years in, right? I don't need to
Yes.
hear how to have an inquiry process
No,
anymore. I
exactly.
don't. What I need now is the nuance of the inquiry
Yes.
process
How do you
according
do
to
it?
my
Yes, yes,
exactly.
exactly.
Exactly. I need to be able to have that objective third party person to say, "Hey, I've had two or three experiences where clients are having this issue right after, but now I know I need to adjust my inquiry process. Where is the level of depth that I'm getting at that question to,
Right,
right? I
right,
know how to
right.
do the basics." And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like, you just hit a certain year in your business. And I think for everybody that looks different. I just
Right.
happen to be near 10 years, and this is just my
Right.
time
Some
to
people
be.
get there in 3 and some people get there in 15.
Absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep.
But it is transformative. And so, now actually, my therapist really helps me on work stuff. Now I go
Mm,
to the conversation with her every single time, because the difference is, I love business coaches and they are for business, and that's great. They don't always help you illuminate how you're showing up in that dynamic, because they're
right.
focused on the system and the process and
Right.
changing the business side of things. But when you have a personal therapist who has that overlap and
Yes.
understands a business dynamic, they're really getting right into it very quickly. I
Yes,
mean, like,
yes,
my
yes.
my therapist has no problem calling me out on something, but it's exactly the approach that works for me. I'm okay being slapped in the face with a
Yeah.
reality if it helps me become a better person and a better business owner on the
Yeah.
other side.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is, you are one of the standouts of the 30 some that I've coached one on one that, um, I would say every person I've coached is willing to hear the objective feedback.
Hmm.
Um, but you've always demonstrated that next level layer. I remember in the beginning being consistently surprised by it and then not. You'd be like,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
conversation we had a week and a half ago, I've listened to it 3 times on Voxer now.
Yep.
I've made notes.
Yep.
And I think that if
Mhm.
I'm going to solve this and not have this problem show up again, either you would say, I've got the solution, or this is the place I need the help in processing this. Like, I
That's
can't
right.
see my way through it, but
Yep.
I realize this is the wrong turn. And so how do I make the right turn? Right. And
Yeah.
that's that's an incredibly powerful relationship to be part in, to
Mhm.
know that in a nutshell, it felt like every conversation moved forward. There was no, oh,
Yeah.
why don't we hash this out again?
Yeah. Yeah, no. See,
I'm just going to interrupt you though. I don't think I attract a lot of people to my chairman of the board that are going to just sit in their problem for 3 weeks and keep telling me it's still a problem.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I feel like if they did, you would call them out
Well,
very
I'm just like,
quickly.
okay, we're wasting time here. This is your
Yeah.
money, your dollar bills,
Yeah,
but this
yeah.
is silly.
We already talked about this. Where are we going with
Right.
this?
You cannot get it, but you
Yeah.
can't just keep saying, yeah, but, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's all. That's all.
Yeah. See, and the frustration tracker is not a diary. It is not
Yes.
intended to be that way, right? And
Yes.
action is it's one stupid column on here. How important is this? But it is the thing that moves you from I am just complaining into I'm going to solve this
Yes.
problem.
Love that, Kim.
And I'm a problem solver through and through, but without having done the reflection, I might be solving the wrong problem
Yes.
or a problem in a wrong way. And so
Yes.
I think that's the important part. So even in my conversations with you, I was like, oh, great, immediately run, run. You got to go do this. You got to go change that. We got to think about this, but I need to process this other one further. So it's always
Yes.
an evaluation of what does need to be changed, where does it need to be changed, what does that action look like. But sometimes it could just be as simple as I have to sit with this one.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. Yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
got to process
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
one,
This
I
is a
got to
bigger
figure this
one.
one
This is
out.
not an easy one.
But yeah, it's not a diary. You know, I can sit here and I mean, I got a lot of complaints in here, I'll be honest. I got a lot of complaints in here, but it's not intended to
Yes,
just,
this isn't journaling to get it out of
it's
your
not.
system, which is another tool that may be worthwhile.
Yeah.
If like for me, if that happened to be my habit, I might have journaled yesterday
Yeah.
before, and then maybe I would have come to a moment where I could do that email. But I had 10
Yeah.
minutes to do the email, and I was like, "You got to keep it rolling.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
This is a big day with a lot of stuff in it. This is a priority. I know it needs to be addressed, and I don't have the time to process it. That wasn't an option 2 years ago. 2 years
Yeah.
ago, I would have had to send some version of an email, or likely what I would have done. And I can think about all the years with Window Works when I would have to face a situation, a hard conversation with a client, and I'm not ready to do it. I would have an admin show up and say, "Hey, just want to let you know, Luann was taken out of pocket this week." Whatever it is,
Yeah.
you make up something just to
Yeah.
buy more time,
Yeah.
before you show up in your bisque. In my family,
Yeah.
we call it bisque. It's like, like a thick lobster soup is all bisky. It's like, this feels like a lot of bisque right now. That's
Yeah.
what we all say to each other. And that's the signal of, okay, we're all mired in the negative, and we're mired in the what's not possible, and we're mired in the this is overwhelming. We need to come away from this. We need to
Yeah.
step out and start to make the right steps to clarity, to like
Yeah.
clear broth,
Yeah.
that's healthy for you. Bone broth, even better,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You got to get through the mud of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that action is important. And so, one of the things that I've implemented for 2025 now is actually a joy tracker too, because
Oh, I
what
love
occurred to
that.
yeah, what occurred to me is because I'm reflective and because I'm always working on the areas that need improvement, I often overlook the areas of joy and
I
the
love
successes
that.
and the wins. And so that was my epiphany recently in therapy, where I was like, oh yeah, I'm so quick to be like, I'm frustrated, this needs to change, I need to solve this problem. But sometimes there's no problem to be solved and everything's going okay.
And sometimes you did a great thing in the conversation.
Yeah.
Everybody got on board, and all the people smiled, and everybody
Yeah.
said, "Yay, Kim, you're a rock star." Even
Yeah.
if they said it by a nod, right?
Yeah. And even in the difficult clients with the difficult contractors, there are still wins that you can
Yes.
find. And so I don't have an expectation that I'm going to have a perfect client or a perfect project always, because that's unrealistic. But I can find the wins. The contractor upset the client, goes on the frustration tracker, but I solved the client's concern by doing X, Y, and Z. That goes on the joy tracker. My client's now happy. I now have a touch point for myself of maybe there's common themes there too, right?
Yeah, in the way
Maybe
that
we
I've
hit,
learned to solve problems, right?
yeah, yeah. So I think that's really important too, because the work of self improvement, whether through yourself or for your business, right, can lead you down a path of constantly focusing on the negative and the thing that needs to be
Yeah.
worked on and improved. And so my joy tracker again just started, so it doesn't have nearly as much as my frustration tracker does. But I will
It's a
tell you,
long life and you're young.
yeah.
It'll get filled up.
But in the moments of, gee, I'm having a really hard day, it's kind of nice to be able to look back and say, oh, yeah, I remember this one time that I did this, or I remember when
Yeah.
this client said this. Like, it's just, it helps you get through those harder moments a little bit easier. And
Yeah.
I think
And
that's equally important.
and my guess is as you build the joy tracker, as you have situations on the frustration side, there
Hmm.
might be times when you can go to the joy side and look for, oh, I've solved this before,
Yeah.
and this is just a version of it or a nuance of it. It's not showing up big and ugly because I've
Right.
made good steps on it. Or even like, oh, you just get to recognition. This is that same thing. Okay,
Yeah.
but here's how I walk through this. This is how I handle it. And it worked for me before,
Yeah.
right? It worked for me in the
Yeah.
past, I mean to say. And
Yeah.
so let me just duplicate what I know is proven.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
and that
love
and
that.
that helps you build confidence in those difficult moments, to know I've been
Yeah.
here before, I did it, it worked
Yeah.
out okay, it will all be okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, listen, I mean, I had to have that hard email on Monday,
Yep.
which was in my business. And then over the last 2 weeks, I have been, I tell you guys all the time, I'm the CCO at WindowWorks, the chief complaint officer. I am no longer selling anything, administrating anything, but like, and the last 2 or 3 weeks, a problem with a consumer, just went up the food chain. And finally, JC just looked at me. He's like, can you step in and handle it? And I'm like, okay. And so now I do my reconnaissance and I go through, and I had like an hour conversation with the sales rep who was involved. Then I had a 20-minute conversation with our office administrator that was involved. Then I had a half-hour conversation with the installer that was involved. And now I'm preparing to have the call with the consumer. And when I tell you, at 40 plus years in business, I'm not in a puddle of mud to do it, but I'm also not looking forward to it either. I'm not like, this is a walk in the park.
Yeah.
Like, I'm emotionally prepared for it at this point because of what you just said. I
Yeah.
have experience and I have proof in my brain that I have
Hmm.
successfully done this, that
Yep.
you have had these hard conversations. You have had times when they're like, then it's been completely resolved. Everybody's happy. There's times when it was resolved, they were happy, you weren't, whatever it is. But it is that I love that you're doing both sides,
Yeah.
because I just think about how much faster I might have been more confident in doing this if I was gathering the evidence of my ability to do it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Now you're talking, 40 plus years later, if I can't do it now. Although, you know what I got to tell you, it's not Vinny's forte.
Hmm.
We decided, COVID is when, all of our businesses got pushed to the limit. And I think he had two hard conversations in, July or August of COVID. And I just looked at him when he got off the phone. I'm like, maybe we don't have you do these calls anymore. He's like, nah, 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 nah. Yeah, right. I got, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll take that job. Don't
Yep.
worry. Right. So I just have a little bit more ability at this point to observe it like a movie, is the way I
Yeah.
say it. But it doesn't mean that I go into it not worried, not thinking
Hmm.
about it. Like, I'm braced. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I just
Yeah.
had to do it last night, literally last night, um, and it's funny because at this point, and what you'll get with the results of your joy tracker and your frustration tracker is you will mentally do your gymnastics quicker because you're consistently reading it, reviewing it, doing the work on it. And, the mental gymnastics, when I relayed the story to both Vin and JC separately, I said, at this moment right here, I could have gotten all of our money, everything we wanted, except we would have 100% sealed that this is a client that will never work with us again. Yeah. And we might have been okay with that. And at that moment, in 5 seconds, there's a moment in a conversation where somebody reveals their weakness or reveals your leverage. Yeah. And after 3 conversations with this particular client over the last 2.5 weeks, last night there was a moment I was like, oh, there it is. There it is. I've been wondering, I was like, why can't I find my spot where I can, why does it feel like she's holding all the cards? This is not right. Where are my cards? And I found it. And in 3 seconds, I was like, oh, like if this were like an action figure movie, I would have like put like a plunger in her jugular, right? Like I was just like, there it is. And I just went, nope, you want to be right or get what you want. And I said to both of them, it was one of the greatest acts of willpower that I have exercised in the moment negotiation with a client, because I could have taken the kill shot. Yeah. And I was like, I had their support. They were like, whatever you want to do. And I just was like, all right, back it up just 1/4 of an inch, give her a little piece of you, and you'll move on. I don't expect that we'll ever do business with her again, but if we don't, it won't be because I took a kill shot and I closed the deal. You see, I closed the opportunity. If she's ever honest with herself or anybody else, she will know that I treated her honorably. She will know that I treated her fairly. She will know that we did everything we supposed to have done. There's no but in that. But that's, I think, to your point, Kim, the difference in our years of experience, you're going to get there way faster with way more poise, way more elegance, way more clarity than it took me to get there, because you're actively working on it. I was just intuiting it,
Yeah. But see, that exact situation is why I honestly loved working with you so much, is because you have such a unique ability to cut through the fluff very quickly. I can give you all of the context in the world of what's going on, and I'm lost in the context, right? I'm sitting here going, well, I'm a designer and I know what the answer is, and clients probably not expecting, having the same expectation as me. But you just cut through that so quickly to get right to, oh, here's actually their problem, but here's the leverage you have. And that is the part that I miss, right? And so this is why it's so valuable to find people who think very differently than you, because they bring that to the table. And I think I'm pretty good at adapting. I hear like a business coach, and at some point I work with Rachel Johansson, right? I worked with her before, and I swear to God, every time I read a script that she wrote, I hear her voice, right? And it's the same thing with you, Lou. Like there's sometimes I'm in situations and I'm like, what would Lou say? And I already know the answer, but I hear it in your exact tone of voice too. And that's the value of it, right? I get a completely different perspective from somebody who has a completely different skill set. And so, and then I wonder, I hear a lot of designers, because I have a lot of conversations with people who, this industry is hard. It's just a hard industry.
It's a brutal business model.
It's just, I was like, man, I could have done anything and probably would have been easier than this. Like, I don't
want to talk anybody out of it, but I think you're all out of your mind.
I think so too. I mean, some days I'm waking up going, oh my God, this frustration tracker should just literally say you're in the wrong industry, right? It's brutal. It's brutal. The expectations, the client management, like it can just be really rough.
Gosh.
And I think the thing is, when you're tracking your joys, I think everything feels more manageable and more digestible, because you're not focused on this one difficult client. You're remembering the 3 great ones that you have over here. And this
or
is
even
now,
like you said, the moments. You can have hard times with a client and great times. It's like childbirth. If we had to relive the actual pain of the birth every single morning, but no, we do that for like however many minutes or hours, and then we get rewarded with this little face that every time we just show up, they're like, there you are. You're amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's a point where that stops too, but then they still have
Of course. Of course. Yeah. But it's easy to get tripped up in the difficult moments. It's easy to get like stuck in those, right? And so I think for me, this will be a whole separate journey of tracking joys. I know the frustrations has definitely served me. And again, finding those like small micro changes in your business. I'm not doing anything different, actually. I have known my frustrations prior to using this, and I have always implemented solutions, but it was the one extra step of documenting and reflecting and revisiting. And that one extra step has been that transformation that I've experienced in my business. And so, a 5-second solution for a decade-long problem, right? Just go document your complaints and all will be good. I wish, but it does help.
Oh gosh, I just love it. I just love it. I've said this to you 1,000 times. I love so much the year that we spent together. There's so many layers of admiration that I have for you and the way that you work and you improve and you take advice and also counterpoint. Anytime that I was like, that sounds like crap to me, you'd be like, well, no, you have to understand. I was like, oh, okay. And of course I'm open to that. You know me. I would be like, unless you can talk to me otherwise, but I'm open to it. Go ahead, have at it, convince me. You know what I mean? And sometimes I was convinced and sometimes I'm like, still think, this is like you said, your leverage. A lot of times I was helping you see your leverage, and seeing your leverage doesn't mean, like, I saw my leverage last night. It didn't mean I went for the kill, but it was very nice to find it. It was very nice.
Yes.
Because I'll tell you what, we still have to finish now with this woman.
Yeah.
And you can be darn sure if she does not go along with the agreement. Oh, see, now I'm like, we're going to execute. We're going to do our thing, but I don't have fear anymore. The last 2 or 3 weeks, it's been like, can we work it out? Can we get to an agreement? Can we, we want to save the relationship. We want to save the project. Now I'm just like, nope, I know where it is. Where it is. And so sometimes that's all the difference in the world, But anyway, I appreciate you. I appreciate your sharing this. I was just telling one of my current chairman of the boards, Kim's coming on to talk about a frustration tracker. You're going to love this. I'm not even going to explain it to you because she's going to do a better job.
I had such a transformative year working with you. And I think that's really important to say. And it's funny. I said it to you repeatedly. I said, where do you go after Luann? And
I do always say you should keep going, right? I'm with you on that. Yes.
Yeah, you're a huge proponent of where are you going next? And it's funny, you had that conversation with me and I said, Lou, I've already been thinking about this for 3 months, but here's the thing. I don't know where I go after Lou. I like, what is next? Like, where's the business coach, like sidestep or, like different area, but same high caliber. And fun fact, I still haven't found it yet, but again, you go to your coach with whatever you have and whatever you're working on. And so I'm a huge proponent to anybody, either sign up for therapy or find a business coach. If not Lou, somebody, but just make sure that you are fully supported. But your approach is very different than everybody else's in the industry. And I've done a lot of coaching in 10 years. I've done a lot.
Yes.
But your approach is very different and it's incredibly valuable in that way. So, I will always be rooting you on, and I hope everybody hires you at some point. Everybody needs a Lou. Like,
it's
beyond the
5
podcast,
a year, girl. There's only so much to go around. But yes, I appreciate.
We might have to talk about that later. Lou, you got to up your standards here a little more.
I have to get rid of 3 or 4 other right things that I do. Right.
Yeah. Last thing you need is to be working harder and doing more. Right.
It's a great level right now because I really can fully show up for 5 people. I have the bandwidth to do that. And, there's times when I can think of 2 separate situations with chairman of the boards. One was last year, one was this year, where a problem, punched up in their face on Friday afternoon. Mm-hmm. And here we are all Friday. That actually happened with you one weekend too. When I was traveling. Yeah. When I was traveling out in, I think North Dakota and South Dakota.
Yes.
Right. And I'm trying to answer you on the
Yep.
rest stops and stuff so that Nagara isn't like, what are you doing? Because that would have been a boundary for him and me that he would have one conversation, he would have been fine. But if we're supposed to be taking this beautiful drive through the Badlands, not listening to Luann talk about client problems. So I'm like, okay, I'm at the rest stop now. Let me blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'll be at the next one in an hour and a half, you know?
Yep. So Vin needs his own frustration tracker is what you're telling me.
No. We do not want Nagara to have a
that would be long. That would be long.
Sir. And I would be every pain point on it.
I believe it.
I don't know. She does this or she does that. Blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, hey, dude, here's my frustration. None of those are my problem, is what he'd say.
Yep.
Supremely confident.
Vin's the problem. That would be yours. Solution, Vinny changes. Yeah. So no, I appreciate it. Your support was always when I needed it. And when it was urgent, I was able to tell you, I literally am not going to be able to let this one tonight. Sit. Yeah. Or, hey, Lou, this one can wait 3 to 5 business days. It's okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. And that's why I consciously do it at the 5, because you don't know when that's going to happen, but that's part of the bargain, you know, that this includes at will access. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I got a problem, you're my person. I'm not paying you to not be my problem solver until it makes sense for you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a valid model. Don't get me wrong. It's not my model. That's all.
Yeah. And it's exactly, I think, why you stand out is because in traditional coaching or even therapy, right? You bring your problem to the table way later than when your problem is occurring. So at that point, I'm normally sitting there going, I already thought about this for 4 days. I don't need to talk about this again. I already
acted and I blew it up the wrong way.
Or I don't care about this anymore. Like, this is a 2-week ago thing, right? But having you in the moment was like, sometimes even I felt very confident dealing with my situation at hand. And I was like, yeah, but no, I still want a different perspective. I still want to hear how Lou would have done this, because if it's not valuable to me in this moment, there will come a place where understanding your mindset and your verbiage will take me places. Yeah. Again, like adapting that Luann voice in my brain, you know? Like, I just want to hear what Lou would do. But yeah, it just was an incredibly transformative year. So I'm so appreciative of our time together.
Thank you. I am too, 100%. And I appreciate today also, because I think you'll probably help a lot of your colleagues just process and think about a different way to move their business forward. It does come with having the foundation of process and systems, and it does come with having clarity around your services and your pricing. But you know what? It's the thing between the ears that is, you know, the tough nut to crack. And so I appreciate your path and showing others how you've done it. So thank you so much, Kim, for being here.
Yeah, I'm so glad, Lou. Thank you so much for having me.
I mean, this is so good, right? You imagine my face when she said that to me. I just was like, wait. But how good is it? And I have to be honest, when Kim first told me that her therapist suggested it, and in the next breath, Kim said that at first she thought it was silly. But the thing is, it's not silly. It's what smart business owners do. Kim trusted the expert, right? It's what smart people do. She trusted her therapist, and then she brought the idea to her business. And what she discovered was game-changing, both personally and professionally, right? Because here's the thing. If you keep running into the same problems, whether it's communication breakdowns, timeline delays, billing headaches, or decision fatigue, it is not bad luck, my friend. It's a pattern. And once you start tracking those patterns, that's when you can do something about them. And that's what Kim did. She stopped pushing through and started digging in. She started asking, where is the breakdown happening? And here's the big thing that Kim always asks. What's my role in this? What process can I tweak to prevent this next time? I have to say, in the year that we spent together, the number of times that after we solved a problem, worked all the way through it, you know, up, down, inside, outside, all the ways, every single time at the end of it, Kim would say, what's my role? What was my role in this? How am I going to come through this? And ensure that it doesn't happen the next time. She always reflected. It was extremely powerful watching her do this in real time throughout the entire year. Okay. I just love it. And she didn't overhaul her entire business to fix these problems as they came up. She made smart, intentional changes. She tightened up her contract language. She started requiring every decision maker to be present. Okay. She wanted to get out of that frustrating telephone game with clients, so she created different accountability. She shifted her time tracking and built in more frequent structured touch points so her clients felt informed and connected without her having to respond to every quick text at 9 p.m. at night. Right? These are the kind of changes that make your days smoother, your projects run cleaner, and ensure your profitability. They come from paying attention to the little moments of frustration instead of brushing them aside. Okay. Now, we've done several shows on setting expectations for yourself and for clients, but I want you to go back and listen to one in particular. It's episode 1050. We'll link it in the show notes. It's a Power Talk Friday show with Amy Posner, where we talk about how interior designer, you, can be the expert, not the order taker. This is your business, so make it your process. What works for you? Just like Kim said, this life is too short to go to bed frustrated each and every night, especially when it's something you actually have a measure of control over. Right? Every one of the frustrations that Kim has tracked has led to changes in her systems and processes. Each one of these changes has helped her reclaim her time, her confidence, and her joy. And yes, remember, we did talk about joy too. Kim doesn't just track frustrations, she tracks the wins. I love this kid, right? This is good stuff because it's easy to forget that in all the doing and the managing and the responding, that you are building a business. And you want to build a business that feels good to run. So if you don't stop and acknowledge what's working, what you love doing, who you loved working with, you risk losing sight of those key things, right? It's such a brilliant mindset. And because let's be real, not every difficult client is the problem. Sometimes the problem is that we never built a process that protected us from the dynamics with that client in the first place. So you may remember a show we did a while back with Veronica Solomon, who is just an amazing soul. And Veronica told me she never, ever complains about a client. Is that actually seriously possible? Well, for V, it is. For her, each client is an opportunity and a gift for her to continue doing what she loves. Now, that's episode 858, and I'll link that in the show notes as well. The theme of that show with Veronica is cultivating self-awareness, which I think is incredibly relatable to this frustration tracker and also Kimberly's way of her point of view on the world as well. Kim shared another great perspective. If you're frustrated, your client is probably frustrated too. And that should light a fire under you to address the issue sooner rather than later. Because if you can fix it early before it festers, you can turn a potentially rocky project into a great client experience. And remember Kim's repeat client, who the first time around was a dream, but the second time, it was one challenge after another. Boundary issues, last-minute demands, refusals to pay invoices. The only difference? The lack of clarity in the new project scope and expectations. She realized it wasn't just a one-off. It was an opportunity for her to course correct. And that's what I love most about Kim's approach. She didn't take it personally. She got curious. She leaned in. She made changes. She worked on her business instead of staying stuck in the complaint. Okay? And this is where it ties back to you. If you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or frustrated, there's data in that. There's direction in that. You don't have to white knuckle your way through and call it quote unquote growth. What you need is structure. You need support. You need a system that builds in reflection and action. Remember, this isn't just venting. It's about finding ways to improve ourselves, our mindsets, and our business. And we must find a level of self-awareness in order to do this. And the thing is, I also mentioned in my conversation with Kim, the episode with Sharon Sherman. That shows linked in the notes as well. Sharon has this system to decode client personality types, and she has a different type for everybody: air, water, fire, right, etc. Each one has their own set of traits. And the thing that you learn over the years in business is that there is almost no bad client personalities. It's our lack of awareness on how to talk with them, lead with them, work with them. All right. It's if the personality doesn't resonate with you off the bat, there's a way around it. Okay. And it's your path. You can do it as long as you're self-aware. The other amazing thing is that, you don't always have to do it. You don't have to adapt. You don't have to say, I will work with this kind of personality. You can choose, once you've learned to understand it, to say, not a great fit for me. You've heard me say it 16 gabillion times. I am not going to work one-on-one for any length of time with a yeah, but person. Nope. The person that says to any and all ideas and solutions, yeah, but that won't work for me. Yeah, but that problem is theirs. Yeah, but it's different in my business. No, ma'am. No, sir. No, thank you. Not at this point in my life. I want to and only work with yes and people. Okay? So, Kimberly's frustration tracker. The beauty is in its simplicity. And the good news, you don't have to start from scratch. Kimberly is sharing her actual frustration tracker template with you today as a goodie. It's linked in the show notes. Okay, so you can go get it and start using it. Even if you think you already know what your frustrations are, I'm telling you, when you see them in black and white over time, you will notice things that you did not notice and realize before. All right. If you want to learn more about Kim and her work, you can find her at houseofsavoystudio.com and connect with her on Instagram, where she is at House of Savoy Studio. Sweetie, thank you so much for sharing your story, your process, and your tools with us. I am just sending you huge, huge hugs, Kim. And thank you for showing up and listening today. Go ahead. You have my permission to complain, but only in the most productive way possible. If Kim's journey sparks something for you and you're ready for that kind of insight and support, take a look at the chairman of the board. You can learn more at luannigara.com/COB. Thanks tons. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or Luann University, go to luannigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to windowworksnj.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.